Okay, good evening. Today is Thursday, August 28th. We're here at the district office for the Hyde Park Central School District's Board of Education meeting. May I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss confidential matters pertaining to the employment, future employment, history of a particular person or persons, and matters of litigation, please?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? We're now in executive session. Thank you. Okay. I apologize for coming out late. We had more executive session material to cover than we anticipated, and we're going to have a second executive session at the end of the meeting. So thank you for your patience. May I have a motion to exit executive session, please?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Okay. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I believe we had one agenda modification. On page 3 of the personal attachments, we're removing the appointment of Samantha Ward to soccer girls modified 7th, 8th grade coach. She has moved out of the district. May I have a motion to accept the modifications?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. And now we're at Pride. We got a lot of stuff going on this summer, so.
Yes, we did. Thanks to the Offices of Instruction and Pupil Services, Aviva and Cora, we had over 500 students here this summer, plus the accompanying staff that was needed to run our extended school year summer program at the elementary level, our summer bridge program at the elementary level, which this year included a pre-kindergarten class for the first time. And it was absolutely adorable to see children so little coming into school for the first time. We actually received a very heartfelt letter from a pre-kindergarten parent talking about how meaningful and important it was for her daughter to come to school over the summer, and major compliments to even the bus driver that she felt that by sending her 4-year-old to school during the summer was so much more prepared to come to kindergarten. So those were our summer bridge and extended school year program. We also ran our Camp Invention program at North Park, and that is a phenomenal program, grant funded. We had 99 students this year and a waiting list. As the program is getting out there in the community, we have more and more students who want to sign up. Those are STEM initiatives. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. Grant funded. Also grant funded this year, again under Cora's leadership, we had for the first time ever a BARD STEM camp, and we had 6th graders from Haviland Middle School and 4 or 5 of our teachers for a week at BARD, and right there on campus with a BARD professor doing all science, technology, engineering, and math. So those were our elementary and middle school programs. Every year we run a summer Regents prep program at the high school, and at the 11th hour we found out that for students who needed credit-bearing high school courses, they no longer had the option of going to Poughkeepsie to a bona fide summer school and get credit for their high school courses. So we had very little lead time. Again, Cora and the high school team worked pretty much round the clock, and we put together an official summer school for the high school. So again, it was not quiet here. It was wonderful. We had lots of children. Summer programs are very unique in that, you know, they're really engaging and there's celebrations at the end. So no shortage of children in our lives this summer. Another major accomplishment this summer was the notice that we were awarded a $1.4 million pre-K grant. Again, the turnaround time from the state education department to write and submit the grant was very tight. They did extend it at one point because they had very few applications. At that point, Cora had already been working round the clock to fill out the application. You cannot apply for the grant by yourself. You have to collaborate with other agencies. So it included collaboration with the Archdiocese as well as Abilities First. And a successful grant was submitted thanks to the efforts of Cora and Abilities First. So thank you, Cora, and we are very proud and pleased with the work that you did and the extraordinary number of extra hours you had to put in to get it done and get it in on time. We are the only district in Dutchess County that received a pre-K grant. The result of the pre-K grant is that we will have 4 pre-kindergarten classrooms at Hyde Park Elementary, and the staff and the grant covers the cost of the use of the classrooms and heating and everything that goes along with that. So we will have 4 pre-kindergarten classes in our district. The grant includes 2 pre-K classes at St. Peter's and 2 pre-K classes at St. Peter's. Did I say St. Peter's twice? I'm sorry. 2 at St. Peter's, 2 at Regina Challey. So that was pretty much our pride. One other very significant point of pride is we have very little time over the summer to clean, refresh, revive our buildings, and we, with 500 children here, we certainly utilized our buildings. So very proud of our facilities and operations department, Elliot's here, for making it happen. The buildings are clean and beautiful and ready for our students, so thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any pride they want to share? I'll just mention I did attend a number of the events, and the Summer Bridge program is truly a wonderful program. The kids really, I spent a lot of time in a couple of the classrooms, and the themes were good, the education was good, and I can understand why parents would be very, very pleased to have that kind of program. So, moving on. We have our mock DWI participants. And I guess, Barbara, you're going to...
Yes, my name's Barb Marine, and I'm here representing FDR and in appreciation for the mock DWI volunteers. And the mock DWI presentation has been a tradition at FDR for over 10 years. I know, over 10 years. Thanks to the dedication and creativity of our local safety folks, the presentation has developed into a 3-hour multi-dimensional experience that is truly one of a kind. From a video which depicts a party where students are seemingly becoming intoxicated, to the dramatization of a crash site, the arrival of emergency vehicles, many emergency vehicles, and I can say this year even a helicopter, to the arrival of a hearse to take away the student who dies in the scene, to an arraignment for the drunk driver, which has been done in recent years by a Dutchess County judge. The event is done with precision and a reality that often initiates a truly emotional response that stays with our students probably for their lifetime. So I'm going to show you just a quick clip that was created by our FDR Live students. And maybe if you could turn off the lights. Office one. That just gives you a quick vision of what was happening. So this is just a brief snippet of the scene, but you can get kind of a feel for what was happening there. But you really have to be there to understand the mission and the outcomes of this event. The mock DWI event is a gift that many dedicated men and women from our community give to our high school seniors. They take their time from their job and their personal lives to plan and rehearse and do the presentation, all with the goal of decreasing the number of students that drink and drive. And it's amazing to see how many participants come out, and you really get an understanding of what giving to your community and caring for the safety of others is all about. And yes, it chokes me up now because it's really a great thing. And at this time, I'd like to recognize some dedicated individuals that have made our mock DWI possible. And I'll ask you to rise if you're in this group or if your name is called. And not everyone can be here tonight. Actually, we had a death in the Roosevelt squad. So some of their members are getting ready for their funeral, arrangements tomorrow. But anyways, here we are, and we're glad you could be here. And so first of all, the fire engines and emergency vehicles were donated, and also the squad members came from the Roosevelt Fire District, and the Staatsburg Fire District, and the West Clinton Fire District. Operating the Jaws of Life were Roosevelt Emergency Services Squad, and the Staatsburg Engine Company number 1, and they also created the zone for the helicopter and some security for the whole scene. Roosevelt Engine Company number 2 and Staatsburg Engine Company number 2. Ambulance companies that were involved and brought ambulances and fly cars and treated patients and transported them to the hospital, so they took the patients away. Roosevelt Rescue Squad, the Staatsburg Rescue Squad, West Clinton Rescue Squad, and also the Northern Dutchess paramedics, Mark Brown. That company volunteered their services and paid their employees to be there. And the helicopter with a crew of 3 from LifeNet New York, and they also volunteered their company but also paid for their people to come. And as Officer Monaco was narrating, he was explaining how that was, several $1,000s to send that helicopter over from was it the Newburgh area, or it came from Newburgh. So we're really appreciative to them as well. Our Hyde Park Police Department, of course, Lieutenant Robert Benson, our SRO officer Monaco and our SRO officer Mirabella were there and part of the dramatization. Organizers, I know our team of organizers is really varied, and we have people from all the different stations coming. I know Captain D. Sagendorf is there. Ron Hall is here with us tonight. Our narrators were Chief Dan Nichols from Roosevelt, Officer Monaco was there narrating, and Rob Sweet Funeral Home provided the hearse with his staff, and Chuck Molt Auto Parts, the demolition of the demolished car and towing and that kind of thing. Our Dutchess Emergency Response 911 received the call and did the mock conversation with the student. And of course, Elliot and his staff were there, Jim Hubel too, to make sure that all the stage was set up on our grounds. FDR Live did a video and placed that on YouTube. Regina Hernandez, our Cape counselor, was part of the planning committee, Mike Ruella, Officer Monaco. And I'm just gonna say a special thanks to Dan Hurley, our school psychologist, because he's very, very modest, but he really keeps this whole thing going every year and really getting all the paperwork out and agendas and all that kind of thing. So I might ask you, Dan, if you could just quickly come and introduce the people that are here, because you're gonna know everyone's name, and then we can do that.
All right, from the Roselle Fire District, we have Assistant Chief Roy Hall. Engine Company Number 1, Captain Chris Johnson. Rescue Squad Lieutenant Barb Carey. Jay Christensen in the back. Hyde Park Police, Marty Monaco. And also Hyde Park Police, Tom Mirabella. I think that's it.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks so much. And as I said, thank you. There's many others that have been involved over the years, and there's 40 or 50 people that come in the morning, and it's fantastic. So I can't thank you all enough for making this possible, and your commitment is just really, really, really appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, everyone. I know the year that I attended, it was drizzling and raining, and accidents don't always happen when the sun is shining and it's easy to be outside. So I know that over the years, you've been out there through all kinds of weather, and it is a chilling experience. So thank you very much.
Yes, I'd like to say thank you also. If it prevents one accident, saves one life, it's well worth whatever it costs. So thank you very much. Okay. Do we have anything for Superintendent's report tonight?
Just a couple of announcements. I also meant to mention we had our freshman orientation last night. That was very well attended, and not only by the parents and the freshmen, but many of the upperclassmen come to represent their club to assist students finding classrooms. So that's a great event every year. Just a couple of announcements. The newsletter went out. I don't know if people received it in their mailbox yet, but if you haven't, it should be there within a day or two, our first newsletter. The district calendar is available now online. We also send about 25 hard copies to the elementary schools in the event that somebody chooses to have a hard copy or does not have access to technology, and about double the amount for the high school and the middle school. This has all of our events for the year listed, so please take a look at that. We're going to discuss later on some signs, and on September 3rd, the Town Planning Board will be having a public hearing on the elementary signs. I attended the annual training for the transportation department, always a great event. get to welcome all of our bus drivers back. They go through their full-day safety and regulation training, and it was, for me, it always marks the very beginning of the school year. And Kim Neisel, our Director of Math and Science, is our mentoring advisor for the year, and we just concluded the 3-day mentoring program for new teachers. So they're all set and ready to go, and basically we're ready to open up our doors next Tuesday to staff. Tuesday and Wednesday are staff days. Thursday we welcome back children in grades 1 through 12, and kindergarten children the following Monday on September 8th. So we're ready.
Thank you. I'd just like to point out, I believe it's true, that the new hires were replacements for people that retired or left the district. We're not starting new things and creating, new expense, just to be clear. Okay. We are now at 6.2. Refunding option. Chuck, you're up.
I'd like to introduce Chuck Bastian. Him and I, throughout the years, have continued to look at the numbers and the interest rates and see if there's ever opportunities for refinancing. We did look at this last year, and we did a fine job, but the market turned back around. But now we're on the flip side of it, and Chuck's going to come up and explain everything and answer questions on anything you have. There is a resolution that's ready on the agenda. If we choose to do that tonight, it's there. If we choose to table it, if there's questions, certainly we could do that and have Chuck come back one more time. So without further ado, Chuck, if you could please come up.
Thank you very much. It's good to see everybody again. Here we are, a new year, as you were talking about, getting ready to go. So you're right, a year ago we were here to talk about refunding options for existing bonds that the district has, fixed rate interest bonds. And the numbers were not phenomenal last year, but they were good numbers to look at, and that was our duty to bring that to you guys. Tonight, we'll look at it again and see how the numbers have evolved over 1 year's time. Let's see. I apologize, the print's small for everybody in the audience, but if you would, turn to page 1. And what the district has are 9 serial bonds out there, again, all fixed interest rates. And the refunding that we're looking at now looks at 3 on this first page, 3 out of the 4 here. These are our oldest bonds, and they have now come to the point where they are callable. And you'll see the little C next to each of those maturities that we have. So we've boxed 3 of those 4 bonds to select. And again, the maturities that are callable are close by here. So if you take that first bond, for example, the $1,879,000 bond that we did back in 2002, it became callable in June of 2011. And the interest rate on that bond, it's a fixed interest rate, 3.95%. So that was good certainly back then, and rates are even lower now, so that's a good candidate to refund those last 3 maturities. The $2,970,000 bond, the second green boxed bond to the right from 2005, also has an interest rate 3.71%, and that's callable next June of 2015, but we can refund that now and save money on that one also, even though it's not callable yet. It will be callable next summer. Same thing with the bond just to the right of that, the $1,498,000 bond, 3.9%. And again, the call provision is available June of 2015. So we can call those maturities and pay that off when we get to June of 2015, and we'll be on a lower interest rate bond. We'll turn to the next bond page. And the 4th and final bond that's available for us to be called right now is the $10.7 million bond we did back in 2006. About 8 years ago, and we have 2 more years until that becomes callable, June of 2016, but there's a lot left there to refund, so that has a lot of savings potential right now. And the other 4 bonds off to the right are more recent bonds, so their call provisions are a little too far out for them to economically work right now to refund those, but we'll obviously be keeping an eye on those another year or 2 or 3 from now. Those are going to be good candidates as we come along. Any questions on the existing 9 bonds? All right, let's go to the next page. Again, we just put in here, like last year, just a quick snapshot of what the 10-year Treasury bond rate has been over this last year. And again, you can see it moves around quite a bit, and it is a little bit lower right now than it was last year. So this is good. Interest rates are still holding low for us, and if anybody can tell us where it's going to go a little bit further to the right, please let us know. That would be nice to know. But it'd be nice to lock it in now if you'd like to. That's certainly an opportunity that's there in front of you. Okay, so the analysis page with the green and the yellow on this one. Again, the left side of the page at the top, it talks about the 4 different bonds that we have from 02, 05, and 2006, the different call dates. And that existing column for gross debt service, again, all those bonds have fixed rate maturities set on those, so those numbers will not change if we don't do anything. That is our debt service going forward. But the box to the right shows that if we would like to do a refunding bond, we essentially take all 4 of those old ones, turn them into a single bond, and to the right is the estimated new debt service. So you'll see the first year, the current year, 2014-15, right now in this year's budget, you have $1,381,000 to be budgeted to be paid. And the refunding bond, it's projected it would drop to $1,320,000. Over the far right-hand column, the savings on the budget this year would be $61,000. So that's a nice number. That's a good size number. And we have that for the following 7 years, 8 years total, is where we would realize the savings. And you see each year it's a little bit more, a little bit less, but at the bottom, the total there, $408,000 total savings over the 8 years. So about $50,000 a year, which turns out to be a pretty good amount of dollars to save just by kind of refinancing your home mortgage, so to speak. What you'll see in the top right-hand corner, again, $408,000, everybody can understand that. That's a good number. That's a real number. But is that a great number? The green numbers up in the top, this helps give you a little bit of a relative understanding of present value savings. When you go through this process, and what you'll reference in the bond resolution that Bond Council has for you tonight for consideration, there's a few references in there under the local finance law in New York State, under section 90.00 and 90.10. These are sections of the law that any municipality in the state, towns, villages, schools, fire districts that want to do a refunding bond can go through the legal process here in the state, and the state comptroller's office reviews it all. And they have to either bless it or kill it. And they'll either let it proceed or not let it proceed. And they'll do that right up through the pricing. If the pricing does not turn out, they will put a stop to it. If the pricing turns out fine, then they'll let it continue on. But what are these percentages up here? The way that the law is written by the state comptroller's office there, they have to look at net present value savings, and they look at it on the total dollar savings. That's why the $390,000 is a little less than the 408 because they discount it back. But the percentage, the 5.96% rate you see there, what does that mean? The rule of thumb that the comptroller's office has is 3%. If you're above that, you're hitting a grand slam, you're hitting a home run. If you're less than that, that's still okay, but they would like to kind of watch that a little bit more tightly. And if you're down at 2% or 1.5%, they're going to look at things a little bit more. They'll have more scrutiny on it, certainly, as they go through the process. But anytime you're getting over 3%, by all means, they'll do everything they can to help you keep rolling right along through that process to grab those savings and lock in that lower interest rate bond. The yellow row you'll see there, we've got an estimated run here from the underwriting firm that ran this for us, and they've estimated this new 8-year bond would be at about 1.66% interest rate. When you see the NIC, that stands for net interest cost. And you'll see to the left of that, compared to the last 8 maturities that are left on those old 4 bonds, 4.40%. So we're actually kind of dropping our interest rate about 3% there on those maturities. Now, another question you're going to ask me is, what are the costs for this? And we kind of went through that, I think, last year when we talked about it, but we'll talk about it again. The $408,000 is net savings for the district after you've paid your issuance costs. It would be similar to when you refinance your mortgage at home. You say, okay, after I pay the lawyers and the bank and points or whatever you do, what's left for me in my monthly payment at home? So this is net after the cost of issuance go by. You'll also have, there's really the three categories of cost of issuance. One of them is, we call it cost of issuance. That's finance, bond counsel, credit rating, escrow bank, the underwriters council, printing and mailing of the official statement. So all those pieces are in there. The second item is the underwriter discount. So the underwriter's fee is in there. And the third one is bond insurance. Let's talk about that for a second. The amount that we're carrying in this refunding for your bond insurance is zero. Why is that? Because you have an excellent credit rating. You have a AA minus, I believe, from Standard & Poor's. So you're just a couple notches away from AAA, which is as high as you can go. But you're up out of the single A category. You're up in the AA category, AA minus. But you're not very far away from all the bond insurance companies' ratings anyway. So there's really no advantage for the underwriter to suggest, hey, let's buy a bond insurance policy to bring your AA minus up maybe one notch to AA. There's no value in doing that when they go to resell your bonds because you have such a good credit rating. If you were down in the A category or the lower A category, it may make sense to pay $15,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 on this size bond to bring your rating up on the bond to make it easier for them to sell. And it would make sense in that analysis if that was going to save you more money, but we do not need to do that, don't have to spend that cost, so that means more savings go right into your number there, the 408. The other thing, just to mention, on the bottom of this page, you'll see a footnote I have there. When the underwriter ran this for us 4 or 5 weeks ago, the 10-year treasury, the benchmark back then was at a 2.51% rate. So that's always good whenever you pick this up now or a couple weeks later or a month later. Where was the market when somebody told me 408? So that was when the bond market was around a 251. Right now, today it closed at a 233. So interest rates have come down, which is a good thing. They could go right back up again, and actually some of this could evaporate. Do I see that happening over the next 3-4 weeks? No, but it could. So that's something for you to all be on the lookout for as we go through the process, if you do want to start step one tonight with adopting the refunding bond resolution. So let me pause there and see if anybody has any questions, because there's a lot I went through on this page. I tried to capture everything there so you could see all the pieces on this one page. We'll talk about the schedule on the last page in a second.
I guess I'll comment. Last year I was against this because the bond rates were going up. And from everything I've read, they're going to continue to go down. What's the difference? Do you happen to know what a 17-point difference makes in estimated savings? I'm just curious.
I don't right offhand.
Okay.
But you're right. If the bond purchaser is pricing this at a 1.66, one thing to let you know too, when we get a run like this from this particular underwriter, Roosevelt and Cross, knock on wood, they've always been conservative. So the 1.66, even back when they ran this with the bond market at a 251, that was a conservative number. So if they went right to pricing then, they probably would have been at a 150. And again, we've probably come down 20 basis points since then.
Right.
So how much lower can it go? Who knows? If it goes much lower, we're going to turn into Japan. So we'll hopefully it doesn't get down too much more like that. But we'll see.
So I guess the question is, should we decide to do this tonight, at what point is the locked in? How long does it take before it's locked in?
Sure. If you would go to the last page there we have for the timeline. See if I can get there. Small print, sorry. You're right. What we've done is really the yellow steps are the key steps for you, for the board. So step 4 would be tonight. If you would like to adopt the refunding bond resolution, that kind of kicks things off officially and gets things rolling. A number of things will happen after that. Item 10 is the first key thing the clerk does for you is publishes the notice of estoppel, gets that right into the paper. And we have a 20-day clock that has to expire after that. After that expires, so it'd be about 20 days after September 3rd. All right, so that will be step 14. That expires around September 24th. We'd be also working on the bond insurance, which isn't going to actually have to occur for us, but we'll be working on the credit rating and the official statement. And then we mail that out and actually have the pricing, step 17, on September 30th. So right about 4 weeks out, because again, 20 days we're waiting for the clock to expire on the notice of estoppel, plus a week to get to the publication there. So that gets us right out to the end of September before we can lock in that interest rate. But there'll be a lot of things going on between now and then. We'll get the official statement going, we'll have the credit rating going, and that would be the day to lock it in. Now, right up until that point in time, again, if all of a sudden on September 29th, the interest rates take off, we call a timeout and we stop. And we step back onto the sidelines and we wait and see if interest rates come back. And then you can hop back on the playing field and keep going.
All right, thank you.
I had a couple questions that were more, I mean, they're related, but related more to our funding from SED, because these are all capital projects of which we're receiving funds through SED. By changing the interest rate or getting a lower interest rate on these bonds, does that have any effect on SED's reimbursement to us?
No, it doesn't.
So we're at a fixed schedule with them, and
Mhm.
it won't change through the life of the project?
That's correct.
Okay. Do I understand that SED, I think historically it's happened before where they expect everybody to be out shopping and doing a better job with their bonding, and can take it upon themselves to lower our funding on these just because that's what we're supposed to be doing? Is that
Right, they wrote into the law back in 2001, October 29th, 2001, when they adjusted building aid rules, section 3602 in the education law. So when they made those changes, they also wrote a provision into the law back then about how they pay school districts building aid. They said at least every 10 years, we are going to go through, State Education Department, and change the assumed amortization rate that they are paying us building aid on. And generally, most of our bonds have all been 15-year bonds. So the first 10 years is pretty well locked in at an assumed interest rate. And you're right, they get to year 11, and they might adjust it up or down, but they have that legal option from the state's end. Now, what have they done historically? This kicked in, was it 3 years ago or 2 years ago, was the first year that they were going to do that. And the state all of a sudden reminded everybody about that, all the school districts, partway through your fiscal year that you were in. Might have been 11, 12, 12, 13. And all of a sudden the district said, wait a minute, we went to our voters with a budget and our revenues are locked in, our levy's already been set. Now the state's all of a sudden going to try to lower the building aid on us partway through the year because it was written into the law. And by the time push came to shove, state ed had to back off. The Governor Cuomo told them, go ahead and not implement that this year, but they said next year it'll kick in. So everybody got ready for it again. The governor's projections of building aid came out at the higher level. And everybody said, wait a minute, didn't they say last year they were going to make it kick in this year? They weren't going to grandfather it again. So sure enough, we were all planning for the lower amount. He had it projected at the higher, and they backed off again at the last minute, and they gave you the higher. So they've backed off a couple times, not saying that that's going to happen again this year, but when we do our budgeting with the district, we'll tell you, here's probably what it's going to be, because the way the law is written. Hopefully if you get that, that's great, but they do have that option written into the law that they will adjust the state assumed interest rate that they pay you building aid on. And they know, you're right, after generally 10 years, all the school districts hit that call provision on their bonds, and we can refinance lower if rates are lower for us. So whether we refinance or not, they might still adjust it lower from their end.
Yeah.
So there's only one thing you can do proactively from your end is catch the expense side, because they may be knocking it down on the revenue side. And if they knock it down and you've done a refinancing, then
It's a wash.
it's a wash.
It could be a wash.
But at least
Yeah.
you've tried to match any reduction that they might be doing.
I just want to make a point of, the savings look good. Some of those savings may be eroded by reduction of aid in the future. And just so we're not thinking that all of a sudden we're going to have, $61,000, it could end up being that we have $30,000 because, not to say it's not a good thing or the right thing to do, just I don't want anybody to start spending money yet thinking that we're saving it.
Any other question? Thank you very much.
Okay, sure, thank you. One last point too, when you see the refunding bond resolution, again, what you'll see on the top of my right-hand column, 6,685,000 would be the refunding bond amount. In the refunding bond resolution, bond counsel has it listed in there at 7,353,000. So a bit higher than the 6,000,008 that we're planning on issuing the bond for. Bond counsel, all bond counsel across the state, they always make the refunding bond resolution be roughly 10% higher than what the current projection is. And that gives you or us or the underwriter a little bit of flexibility as they're going through this process over the next 4 weeks, lining up and sizing and getting ready to price your bond. Because again, what they want to do, their duty to you, my duty to you, is to get you the best bottom line savings. So if they can issue a little bit more of a, less of a premium bond, more of a par value bond, and it turns out to be 6.9 or 7.0, you're still okay because you've authorized it in the bond resolution. Obviously, we can't go over the 7,000,003, but if there's an economic reason to adjust that size a little bit bigger because of how they do premium and discount bonds when they sell it in the secondary market, to pass along more savings to you, it's nice to have that flexibility. If the bond counsel only set the resolution at the 6,000,008 and all of a sudden the bond market in the next couple weeks starts to kind of demand a different type of bond, premium or discount bond, then we may lose out on some savings that we could have actually gotten. So again, it all washes out in the end, and the comptroller's office is watching this. They're keeping an eye on exactly how all the numbers work, because none of you are experts at this, so the comptroller's office is there to help, watch the whole process and keep an eye on numbers for you, along with us and bond counsel too.
Yeah, I guess that raises one question that I had earlier that I didn't ask. So, because if I take the totals of the principal, it's quite a bit greater than the 6.
Right, she has to reference what the original bond authorizations were, or what the original bonds were. Back in '02, you're right, let me go back 2 slides. Oops, sorry. I flipped it out. Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, so back on the original bonds of 1,879 back in '02, there's much less than that that's outstanding right now.
Right.
Same thing with even that 10,000,007 bond. So when you go back, there's much less than that outstanding. So those 4 original amounts, you're right, we're not doing a refunding bond for $15 or $16 million, because you've paid a lot of that down.
But not even, what I was looking at is that if you add up the totals at the bottom of the earlier sheets, where you've got the 4 different green boxes.
Oh, okay.
You've got 240,000, 740, 770, and 6,440,000. That total, does that, I thought that total came up, yeah, that certainly comes up to be greater than the 6,685,000.
Right, so what the underwriter's doing is they're issuing a premium bond in there. So they're giving you a big premium along with 6,685,000 to pay off that greater amount that's outstanding, because the market wants what are called premium bonds right now. So, I mean, we can get into a lot of the details if you want sometime to see how all the pieces and the mechanics work, but you're right, you're exactly right. Yeah, so so we're actually issuing less bonds than what's outstanding right now.
Right.
But when we do that, the smaller amount, the 6,685,000, the underwriter's going to say, okay, here's $500,000 of premium, just cash coming out of their pocket. They're going to get that back through the interest rate. They'll issue these bonds a little bit higher interest rate, the 1.66. If there was no premium, it might be 1.5. But they're recouping their premium, but it would have been 1.5 on a 7,000,003 bond at a higher, a higher bond principal amount. So it's how they want to market it to the bond world. When they go that lower interest rate, people don't want to go and buy one of these low interest rate bonds from Wall Street, something that says, 1.5% I'm going to get for the next 8 years, or 1.2%, or 1%. They want to see something that says 2% or 3%. They want to see something that's got a little bit more meat on it. When these rates get so low, the underwriters are finding that it's easier to sell a higher interest rate bond, but they're going to give you more cash up front against it. It's very interesting how this all works. So you should have a class that you should design someday for Bonds 101.
I'll invite you back.
It put kids to sleep, sorry.
Okay, I think that's very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Chuck.
Safe trip back.
Thank you.
Elliot, can you get the lights?
Thanks.
Now we're up to 6.3, the Phase 4A 1 Haviland Heating Systems Replacement Update.
Yeah, I just thought we'd be remiss if we didn't mention this at every board meeting. We will be having another presentation on September 11th, where we'll run through the whole project again, just so it's fresh in everybody's mind in September when we hold the vote. Additionally, our newsletter went out this week. We also post a copy of the newsletter on our website. Is it posted yet, the newsletter? If not, it will be tomorrow. But the newsletter is full of information. It is. It's already up on our website. The newsletter is full of information about the Haviland heating system vote. Members of the public are more than welcome to call and ask any questions after they read the materials. They're welcome to come to the presentation on September 11th, where we'll review again the scope of the work. Right now, we'll also be sending out reminder postcards, and it'll be in all of our publications. There's a link on the website right now that has frequently asked questions, as well as a greater level of detail about the project. You can register to vote anytime. You can also register online. Applications for absentee ballots may also be picked up, and our official voter registration is on September 22nd. Again, we will be having a vote on September 30th at Haviland Middle School from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on the Haviland heating system. Again, we had voter authorization to replace all the boilers. We initially thought we could phase in the rest of the infrastructure, and after what we experienced last year at Haviland Middle School, with actually having to close the school on a couple of occasions, and for a standing 3 weeks having to reroute students to another schedule, we realized that this is so urgent that we need to go out for voter authorization now and not jeopardize the education of our students. By having this vote on September 30th, we anticipate that the heating infrastructure would be repaired and replaced by the winter of 2015-16. If we wait any longer for voter authorization, we'll lose yet another winter season. So we feel it's imminent, and the education of our students is our highest priority, and we are going out for voter approval on September 30th.
Thank you. We now are up to 6.4. Wayne's going to give us the tax levy presentation.
Good evening, everybody. So once a year, we have a presentation on our tax levy, and this is the presentation that explains how things worked out, how numbers came in, and you'll see as I present. So basically, the district invested in an updated software last year, and now all of our 5 towns that represent Hyde Park Central School District have the ability to pay their taxes online. There's a link on our website at www.hpcsd.org. And if that's the option for you, then certainly it's a lot easier than having to come to the taxpayer or mail it in or whatever you want to do. So there's a process for setting the tax levy. We vote on our expenditures and the budget in May. We anticipate our revenues in May. Our tax levy is estimated in May. And then our equalization rates received from the state in August, much earlier in August this year. And then our assessed values come from each of the towns. So we have 5 towns, and the assessed values come from all 5 towns. Tax rates and warrants are calculated by the town, and then tax bills are created and mailed by the tax collector. And the board is here to approve the tax warrants this evening, which are on the agenda later on. The dates this year for tax collection include September 10th through October 9th, and that's the non-penalty period. If you choose to pay between October 10th and November 3rd, there is a 2% penalty that's added on. The difference between the tax levy this year and last year, if you're looking at 14-15 versus 13-14, is our tax cap, as you remember, during budget season when we presented, or 2.03%. Tax levy increase versus tax rate. This is very important. People get confused and come to me quite often and say, oh, okay, you had a tax levy increase at 2.03, but my bill is 5%. Well, tax levy increase and tax rate increase are two very, very different things. The tax levy increase is the difference between our full tax levy 1 year to the next. So if you took 13 and 14 and compared it to 14 and 15 and did the calculation, 2.03 represents the full amount of percentage increase in 1 year to the next. Your tax rate increase is very unique to your situation, depending on your assessed value, depending on whether you were reassessed or the town that you're in. But this is the percentage that tax rates for HPCSD taxpayers goes up for 13, 14 to 14, 15. This is what shows up on your bill. So, and again, everybody's unique, and that's important to understand. Everybody has different things going on in their, in their household. The tax rates changed. The total levy, $56,815,509, and you can see the percentage increases in the different towns. And I want to talk a little bit about one of them. You'll see it was very even this year. I was very happy to see that. And then I see Clinton with 4.59, which is it was really something I wanted to look into and find out why did that happen. So I called up the county and I called up the state of New York with regards to, tell me exactly why this happened so I know. And sometimes, the first thing he started off to say is it's tough to divide percentages by percentages. That's the first thing he suggested. But I said, well, okay, that's great. Tell me why this, why that's 4.59 and everybody else is 3.5. And the reason is simple. The tax levy, the equalization rate for Clinton did go down. Their assessed values also went down, and that's pretty much 1%. It was 1.01 and went down to 1.0, and that's pretty much the difference outside of some assessed value changes that you'll see in later slides. They really wanted to get that point across that that's, again, a function of New York State and a function of the assessed values in that area. But otherwise, as you see, the others were all the same. So right there you can see Clinton went down from 1.01 to 100, a difference of 0.99%. So that's basically the difference in their tax rate. And then there was no change in equalization rates for Hyde Park, Pleasant Valley, Poughkeepsie, or Rhinebeck this year. And that was very, very happy to hear that. Market value we spoke about in the past, and people get market value and assessed value mixed up. Market value is basically the price that you can sell your house for, and the assessed value is what's on your tax roll. And there's an equation to get that. Share of tax levy by town. Now this one is interesting as well, and this is this is good news for Clinton because their assessed values went down. A portion of their tax levy got pushed on to the other towns, similar to how it happened last year to them. So when I said last year it can happen at any time, in this case, 2.37% got moved into Hyde Park, Pleasant Valley, Poughkeepsie, and Rhinebeck. So that's an interesting fact. It's almost ironic that it happened that way, because it happened to them last year, and this year, they affected everybody else with that. But you'll see that the assessed, then the dollar amount that Clinton is going to be responsible for is lower as well. So with that being said, Hyde Park is 3.3, Pleasant Valley 3.7, Poughkeepsie is 0.55, Rhinebeck is 2.18. So that's the percentage change in the amount of tax levy that each town is responsible for. This is a comparison of taxable assessed values, and this is important too. You'll notice, as I mentioned earlier, Clinton's assessed values went down, Hyde Park's assessed values went down, Pleasant Valley actually went up, and Poughkeepsie went down, and Rhinebeck went down. You can see the differences of how the decreases are based on the number of taxable assessed values in that particular town. So it's all relative and ratio like, so. STAR, you may remember over the last 3 years, New York State has capped an increase in STAR savings at 2%. This could mean, again, that I have to re-levy. The STAR rates don't come out until after we levy our taxes, so we might in the near future have just new warrants with new STAR amounts on them like we've done the last 3 years. I did research, can we just not put STAR on the levy? And I didn't get a very clear message back as to whether we could or couldn't, so I decided to do it the same way we've been doing it. And the adjusted STAR numbers are given to school districts after the levy's set, like I said, requiring us to adopt the tax levy again in September. School district's maximum STAR, it varies by town. In Clinton, you can see the basic and enhanced, you can just kind of read for yourself, in Hyde Park. And this is the maximum amount you can get based on which STAR program you're in. The tax freeze. Due to the district's adherence and diligence to stay at the tax cap, we are all benefiting. The entire school district will benefit from receiving a check from the increase in your taxes from 1314 to 1415 from the state of New York this fall. They haven't said when it's going to come yet, but we look forward to, I'm sure everybody will look forward to that check in the mail. This is extra money. That was called the tax freeze, and all the district has had to do was be tax cap compliant, and you also have to be a member of STAR. So if you're not a member of STAR, this is for 2 years. So get in there before March 1st, and you sign up for STAR. All district residents will receive that check, and I look forward to hearing back from everybody that they got it. And that's basically the presentation for this evening. Like I said, this is followed by the warrants, which will go out to each of the towns. From that point, a lot of paperwork happens, the bills are printed and so on and so forth, and tax bills will be going out in the next week.
Thank you, Wayne. Does anybody have any questions for Wayne?
Yeah, so can you just go back to slide 14 and explain about the STAR and the fact that we may have to adopt the levy again in September?
Mm-hmm.
What potentially could change?
Was it slide to page 14? Or?
Yes, I guess, yeah, slide 14 or page 14.
Okay. The reason for that is...
Oh, I guess you don't match mine.
It
Says 14 at the bottom,
okay.
so. But it doesn't match that one there.
This one here?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens is the state of New York has capped your STAR level at 2%. So if for some reason somebody comes in at over 2%, and those numbers that I gave here, so say my particular tax bill came in at 1,080 by calculation, and that was over the 2%, they take it down to the 2% and give out and it's all dependent on the levies that go out to the county. Once we send our numbers, after tonight, I will send all these tax warrants to the county, and the county will put them into the system. The system then shares that with the STAR administration in New York State, and then they cap it. So if any one of them had come up more than 2%, they basically just take that amount of money off, and the person's left with 2% of what it was. And that's basically why it's kind of like chicken before the egg. We don't have those STAR numbers until after we've done this presentation and did our
So
levy.
what potentially can we be adopting again later in September? It doesn't change what the warrant is, or does
Nope.
it change the amount of the warrant? Does it?
Just a STAR.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions?
Just get a little unnerved
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you signing a warrant as an order to a tax collector to print bills and collect the money. And I remember last year we were signing it with them again, and it just didn't seem right. And leave it to the state to have it half backwards. Okay.
There's a number of variables that we're looking here when it comes to somebody's tax bill. So, for example, I'm thinking about Clinton. So their equalization rate went down. However, the taxable assessed values also went down. So it's a little hard to look at these numbers and predict how an individual's tax bill is going to be affected. Do you have a feel for that? Because when I look at some of these numbers, I think, for example, Clinton, some residents out there feel like I'm talking out of a barrel.
Yeah, there's a lot of feedback tonight.
Some residents may actually experience a decrease in their taxes.
Yes.
So, do you have any estimates, on the average taxpayer in a given town based on the
Once
numbers here?
Once they print the bills, typically what I've done in the past is I've picked like 5 different types of bills and then try to take a look at that and see, what, one with somebody that didn't have assessed values that changed, somebody that had assessed values that went up, somebody that had a senior star, and one with star, without a star by town, and I try to get a feel, but it's hard to get with that, with just this information right now, and that without the tax bills printed, to get that information. But it's a good question, and it's something that we've done in the past, just to kind of get a feel that, how many people were done. And I always look at, like 20, 25 or 30 bills just without the evaluation and see, what happened.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Wayne. I guess you could stay right up there for the tax and salary report, tertiary report, 6.5.
I can call them tax certs.
Tax certs, yeah, it's a lot easier. Yeah.
Okay, tax certs. We have been experiencing considerably more tax certs coming to the district this year than in previous years. So I thought it important to present, because there's also a tax recommendation on the agenda this evening. So what is a tax certiorari? Basically, it's a legal process by which the courts review a real property assessment, and generally speaking, it encompasses the entire assessment review process, from filing a grievance complaint with the local board of assessment review through judicial review of the assessment. So in hindsight, somebody goes out and fights their assessment and says that their assessment is incorrect, and those are the legal words to say that. So that's what happens. It happens in companies. It happens in households. It happens in all different things. So and we do receive them regularly. What is the maximum potential liability on our books right now? And this is interesting. It's $7,422,000. So if each one of them went through, which will never happen, $7 million we could be liable for. And what I did this afternoon, because I just wanted to find the number, I wanted to see how much came in since July. It's $2,157,018 in new money certs that came in to date, 2 months max. So that's just in the last 2 months. Because I open my email box and I have 5 or 6 of them in there every single day.
Yeah, it's been a constant.
There's at least 5 per day. And that is equal to $95,184,066 worth of assessed value. So some interesting facts just to know that, I think as economic times get rougher, it's a way for folks to reduce their expenses, to be honest with you. I mean, there's no, I think it's fair to say. Or maybe there's a real reason for it. So I did a little history to show you what our tax certiorari history's been. And I wanted to show you just the movement that it's done. And you'll see, and when I made this presentation, I was initially going to do it in July. That number's up, the 1.2 is up to 2 point, like I mentioned, so that's why I did that research today to find out where we were. But you can see it's definitely on the rise. The Hyde Park Central School District keeps a reserve for these as a safety valve, and the reason we do that is, God forbid some of these come through, large ones, and they do come through from time to time. We have a safety reserve mechanism in place that will help to pay for it. And the comptroller has worked with us to, set up a new tax cert reserve each year. And this year's reserve recommendation is 830, but it doesn't read that way on the agenda for a certain reason. And I sent you a memo, and I'm going to talk about it so the public understands it too. There's several things that go into your tax serve recommendation, and those things include the full amount that you're going to take is 864,406, which doesn't sound like 830 to me. But then you have to take the 1213 expense that we paid in 1314, subtract that out, which is 9,485, and then you take the payments in 1314, which were $24,000, and subtract that out, which equals the $830,000, which is coming out of this year's fund balance. So I thought that was important to.
Typical New York State bookkeeping.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they require. We used to have a tax reserve that we just did every year,
Right.
and then the comptroller has changed their mind on that, or, had some kind of a ruling, and requires us to establish and fund a new one each year.
And you have to, in June, you have to establish it in the year. So in June, there was a resolution to establish it. And then, now we're in the new fiscal year, we can act upon it. Fund it.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Wayne on this? Thank you, Wayne.
Great, wonderful. One more.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you get to do that too? I thought you're going to bring Pat up.
Good.
Amy,
Pat, come on up. Amy, come on up. Monica, come on up. Elliot, come on up. This is just a little feel-good thing. The track holds a special place in a lot of our hearts, and watching some of the folks out there yesterday, and I tried to get your attention, but I didn't want to take you away from your hammer. So me and Amy were out there, and this is a really feel-good thing. Many groups have gotten together, and together with Facilities and Operations, and myself and Amy, to do a donation for a storage shed.
Multi-purpose.
Right, multi-purpose storage shed. I just wanted to show you what that's going to look like. We have a picture, and that's going to be on the pad near the front gate. So it's exciting to see. Amy was showing me pictures just a couple minutes ago of what it looks like, and you can see it looks a little bit like Haviland, doesn't it? So I really want to recognize some people. Keep Hyde Park on track. It's just been phenomenal. Mr. Mosier, he is king coordinator of this particular project, as I hear it. Amy's always there to support. Elliot and his team are always there to support. And I just wanted to publicly thank the folks that have been really putting together. This will be a donation to the school district, and it's a really feel good, happy thing that really warms my heart. So thank you from the bottom of it. And it couldn't happen without you guys. There's been a lot of great athletic improvements, over the years, and a lot of them have been through Pat Mosier. So I just want to shake your hand.
When will I be getting my first hot dog? Because that's the only time I get a hot dog is when I'm at the football game.
You
so.
got it.
Yeah, all right.
As soon as we get it done. The follow-up of this is there's been a lot of people out there that donated a lot of things that are waiting from, I think, between the three of you to get a list. And we're going to invite those folks to the board meeting next board meeting on the 11th to publicly thank them, whether it was a nail or it was, a large,
Thousands of dollars.
Thousands and thousands of dollars. Every piece helped, and it really is a feel-good thing. So, so thank you again. Right? Appreciate it.
Good job.
Yep. That's my last presentation.
All right. Well, thank you all for being patient with us. We finally got to public participation. So may I have a motion to enter public participation, please?
So moved. Second?
Is there any discussion? All in favor? We're now in public participation. Anybody who would like to address the board, please step up to the microphone. Don't be shy.
Hi, I am Katie Thorne. I go to St. Peter's School, and I am going into 6th grade. And I just wanted to say.
You want me to go first, sweetie?
Yeah.
Okay. It's my daughter Katie. My name is Beth Thorne. She mentioned my daughter Katie is going into St. Peter's 6th grade. We were notified a few weeks ago that resource room, which Katie is a participant in at St. Peter's, has been reallocated. It's going to be held at North Park Elementary. And instead of being during the school day, it will be before the school day. Katie understood that this was being done and felt the need to come and speak tonight to let you know her opinions and her feelings about this. Do you want to go now? Or? Yeah. Okay.
Well, at my school in the morning, which I would be missing, is we do prayers and the pledge, which I would miss. and I don't really want to miss that because it's the whole school playing together. And then we also have announcements about upcoming events for just like fundraisers or teams or anything involving the church. And then in the morning, which I would also miss, is sometimes we do song practice for church as a school, which takes up about 10 minutes, but it's still important that we practice. And then I would also miss homeroom. Like the homeroom in the beginning is only like 15 minutes to get all stuff ready for the next classes, because we have like 3 classes and we don't have time to go back and get all other stuff. So I would miss that. It would also be noticeable when I come in late to other kids that I need help. I have scoliosis, and the bus would be a problem, busing me out. I had the spinal fusion surgery 10 months ago, so that would be a problem on the bus because then I would be in pain the rest of the day from spasms, and I use heat, but that doesn't help. So I would be in pain, and the only muscle relaxer would make me sleepy, so I'd fall asleep in class. So that wouldn't help. And I would miss, sometimes we go to church and we do a spelling test before church, right in the morning, and I would miss the beginning of my spelling test. So then I would have to use other class time when we're doing math or ELA or other stuff to finish up my spelling test, which would also make me miss other stuff that I need to know. I would have to wake up earlier in the morning, and that's kind of hard for me because I go to bed kind of late, staying up doing homework and stuff. And yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. That was very well done.
And I'm Beth Thorne, Katie's mom. I want to say right now I'm very proud of my daughter. But I have to, just to get this on the record, over the years, we've heard many special education professionals advocate the benefits of providing services in the school, in the classroom, so the resource room teacher can address the students' issues or weaknesses as they occur. And I have to ask the district, how can the resource room teacher identify and address these issues when they are disconnected from the classroom? How can a teacher working with children, not just from multiple grades, but multiple schools, be able to identify and address the students' needs? How can they teach the student techniques and strategies to help them in a disconnected setting? One of the things that myself and one of the other mothers have questioned, if this year is anything like last year and we have so many snow days and 2-hour delays, how will that affect the children if they're supposed to be showing up at school before 7:30? If there's an hour delay or 2-hour delay, how many sessions will they miss of resource room? The children that need resource room will be getting up earlier. In Katie's case, we have to get up almost an hour earlier to get her to North Park Elementary in time. And I have to question, how is that going to benefit not just my daughter, but the older children, especially the younger children? Their school day now is going to be an hour longer. And a child that's in first, second, or third grade, I can't imagine what they're going to be like after lunchtime, if they're even going to be able to stay awake in school. As Katie has mentioned, coming in late to her classes will make her situation more noticeable. And I have to wonder if that was thought about when these decisions were being made. The last couple of decades, words used by special education professionals have been inclusion, push-in, continuum of services. These phrases all deal with a range of services which must be available to the students of the school district so they can be served in the least restrictive environment. This move, I feel, disregards those practices and makes it more difficult for children, not just Katie, but the other children as well. What Katie has mentioned about her back, she had spinal fusion surgery. She is sensitive to bumps and jarring, which if you've ever been on a school bus, you know they're not built for comfort. She will be rushing to get from North Park Elementary to her school to try and get to class so she doesn't miss any of the beginning activities. One speed bump, and that child will be uncomfortable for the whole day. I thank you for your time. I thank you for my daughter. And I'm very proud of her. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Would anybody else like to, while I have a drink of water here?
Nobody's ever died when I was speaking.
No, I think it's September. Isn't it when we agree? Once a year?
I think once
that's
a
what
year.
it is, yeah.
Once a year. I thought it was in April. My name is Nancy Molson. I live at 19 Valley View Road in Hyde Park, New York. At your June 12th meeting, I asked the board to reconsider the district's policy that required that teachers remove all personal teaching materials from the rooms over the summer. I was pleased to learn that at your June 26th meeting, you agreed that we could leave our materials in our room so long as they were stored in a manner that the room remained welcoming for our summer school students. And I'd simply like to thank you for your thoughtful and gracious response to my request. In addition, I'd like to congratulate the board on adding universal pre-kindergarten classrooms to our district. I'm delighted for the stimulation and the development that this will afford our little ones in Hyde Park. And as a resident of the village, I am over the moon happy that Hyde Park Elementary will once again be filled with children and learning and promise. So congratulations.
Thank you. Anybody else? May I have a motion to close public participation, please?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. You want to handle it? Or Aviva? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I do want to address some of this, and, you know, I'm in charge of people services that include special education. I was part of this decision-making. So, you know, just for your sake and anyone else who's listening, I know. There's a few points. You know, one is that we've tried to work individually, and I'm sure you've been reached out to as well, to try to make it work for every family. And there was one major option. So the before-school service was something we worked out with principals at both parochial schools, because one of the other options would be, and still is, to have a bus come during the school day and take a student into one of our buildings to receive the service. And so the day wouldn't be longer and there wouldn't be that additional time. So that's still an option. But the feeling was that that can be disruptive as well, because at what time are you missing? And we can try to coordinate schedules. And certainly sixth grade resource room is available at different times throughout the day at Haviland, so there's some flexibility. But it would still be the time on the bus or traveling that you're missing. So it's not just the 45 minutes or half-hour resource room, but it takes more time than that. So the decision was that we really wanted to offer that opportunity. For some families, it made more sense to drop off before school, receive the service, and the first half-hour resource room starts at 7:30, is over by 8, and would really have children who are just receiving resource room to school in time. So that was the thinking, and that with each family we were able to honor whether they wanted the service at 7:30 or at 8 in the morning. So if you were only receiving one, you could get that one and not have to wait. So, you know, we really did try to personalize it. On a broader scale, the decision not to have the resource rooms at St. Peter's is something that happens every year. We review the numbers of students needing a service at the parochial schools. And the year we had a couple of years of offering at St. Peter's, we never did that before. And for those years, when it first started, there were 9 students of different ages at St. Peter's who needed the resource room service. So it really made sense to send a person there for 2 periods and have, you know, 4 students in one class and 5 in the other. And that made sense for 2 years, and then we just had far fewer students needing the service. And so, you know, every year we're evaluating the needs, thinking about the kids who are at the schools, but also just being cognizant of, you know, taxpayers and having services delivered in a way that's not efficient. For just a couple of students. So that was how that came about, and we did work with both principals trying to hear what the main concerns were, and it's still an option for every family to have it during the school day and be transported to either Haviland or one of the elementary home schools for the service. You know, that said, we know that there are different circumstances for everybody. There was someone who couldn't get transportation in the morning, and we made those arrangements for them. So you know, I'd be happy to have, you know, our director talk with you about your particular circumstances and see if there's anything we can do, because she has been doing that for everybody. And I know there's another public participation if you want to stay, so I might have raised more questions for you, and I'd be happy to answer them again. But because we're not allowed to go back and forth, That's all I could think of for now, but if you nod, I'll have her call you tomorrow. Yeah.
Actually, I'm already trying to get in touch.
Okay, she's in tomorrow, so I'll have her call you tomorrow. I know we just did that, but that's all right. It's small. No, it's fine. It's fine. Okay.
Solves the issue.
Yeah.
Yep.
She will.
Could I just ask, Aviva, how many students are there at St. Peter's receiving resource room?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can email you that tomorrow.
Okay.
And at Regina Chaley, I can give you those
Yeah,
numbers.
yeah, just-
But it all fit into, within a 6-day cycle at North Park, all of this, the related services and resource room fit into those 2 half-hour periods for both schools pretty easily. So, the other piece was the idea about having kids in groups that were not single or, one kid. Or
Right.
one, it was a way to have
Yeah, bring it
slightly
together so
larger
there's,
groups
those-
and
those
combine the 2 buildings.
efficiencies of,
With the therapists who are there, we just staggered their schedules.
okay.
So in that way, it's an efficiency that the therapists who are at North Park were able to accommodate.
And are.
Well, no, I'm saying that, and that's not true. That was true for related service, but for resource room, we actually have a half-time position allocated between North Park and FDR for this purpose. So there actually is a half-time teacher doing just the resource rooms for the parochial schools.
So is it fair to say that the majority of the students are already at North Park?
No, that halftime position is just for these 2 periods. And the reason that we couldn't travel to St. Peter's, have that person travel to St. Peter's or to Regina Chaley, was that they're split between FDR, and there wasn't travel time for everything. So that was a particular thing for this year as well, that if we had wanted to do it at St. Peter's, that teacher would not have time to travel and be where they need to be on time for class. So I'm sorry, the thing I said before just had to do with something else. So the resource.
Okay. I'd like to thank Nancy for taking the time to come back. It's not often that we can correct the situation. It obviously needs correcting. Sometimes there's circumstances that prevent us from doing things, but I'm happy in this case that we could, and I am very happy that you came back. It's not often that somebody comes back and says, thank you. So, thank you. Okay. Moving on to the Town of Hyde Park land use application. Are you and Kevin talking about this, or?
Yeah, this is on for board discussion. This is, at this moment in time, a little bit about, or mostly about the signs and trying to work with the town to, process how we function as a governing board with certain rights and where we connect with the town and where we might have differences of opinions of jurisdiction. So I don't know if anybody wants to take the lead on the sign project, or do you want me to continue?
Well,
or-
why don't you just mention that, we did meet with the town not two Fridays ago, and we, you and I and our attorney, along with Aileen and her attorney, actually it was planning board's attorney, and the discussion kind of arose about, the signs, and, Netherwood and Violet Avenue don't count because they're out of the town of Hyde Park, and town of Poughkeepsie and town of Pleasant Valley already said, okay, when checked and good to go. But now why don't you talk about, where we are with, at least with the elementary signs, and then we'll talk about the other 2.
So we landed in a good place on the elementary signs. There is a court decision called the Monroe Balancing Act, and it's to help governmental agencies make sure that both parties are being considerate of each other. And so we agreed to have the town planning board conduct a public hearing on the elementary signs. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, that public hearing, the town planning board will have a public hearing on September 3rd, and they will apply the Monroe balancing test to our elementary signs. Through informal discussions, we feel that everything will be copacetic and we'll be able to move forward. From our point of view, if for some reason they want it an inch taller, an inch shorter, we'll be happy to accommodate that and really work with them on any feedback received as a result of the review process and their public hearing. The signs at FDR and Haviland are on hold, mostly because we are still doing our homework on the FDR sign. The FDR sign is not on our property. It was property that originally John Golden owned. He gave the school district permission to use the property for a sign. The property has subsequently, or is now in possession of the DEC, right? Or DOT, the Department of Transportation. So we are in the process of finding out where we land with the Department of Transportation, whether they'll grandfather us in on being able to utilize that site for our sign. One would hope that because we have an existing sign there, to simply replace it with another sign, there would be an agreement, but it's not our decision, it's the Department of Transportation. We will also find out the Department of Transportation could possibly ask us to lease the property. At that point, we could make the decision to have a directional sign out there and move the sign onto our own property, and simply have a directional sign and move it onto our own property. The second issue for us and the town to continue a dialogue is when signs are on our property, such as Haviland, our interpretation and actually the state's interpretation is that's our property and we can put up any kind of sign we want. We are good neighbors with the town, and we recognize that the town has very specific zoning regulations for signs. And they continuously work with businesses and other agencies, and certain types of electronic sign and signs that are of a certain size are not installed in Hyde Park because they don't meet the town planning board's requirements for signs. So we are exempt from that, and somewhere down the middle, there's a decision to be made of how we interact with the town and interface with the town to be good neighbors, and where we can act as our own governmental agency, which is within our purview. So, and a struggle for me personally with an electronic sign is we already have signs that are lit up, and in order to change what is written on the sign, so this week the FDR sign, and probably 2 weeks ago the Haviland sign said, 6th grade orientation or 9th grade orientation, and you physically have to go out with the letters, and when it's sub-zero weather and in the morning, you can only change those letters manually, and one of our assistant principals or our principals are out there changing letters. We have voter approval for an amount of money that took place in 2007 to have unified signs in the district, and there is enough money to have electronic signs so that the announcements could be changed from inside with a computer. We recognize the concern and are willing to create a policy to indicate that although we may have the capability to have flashing lights, scrolling signs, and all kinds of things that may be actually a safety hazard for student drivers, for adult drivers, we can actually create a policy about our sign use, have a 21st century sign. I will tell you that right now, because of the administrative time it takes to change the letters on the sign, we do announce things such as freshman orientation, but we could be announcing different things. Not every second and not scrolling, but we could certainly be utilizing our signs more frequently and really doing the business of a school by making information available on a regular basis, not on a rotating, flashing, scrolling basis. So we certainly understand the concerns. We also are very much willing to work with the town. As we pointed out in the meeting, I walked into the district 5 years ago with a couple of, with a pretty packed room. And it was about the Haviland bus loop. And within 6 weeks, we had it remedied. We listened to the concerns of the planning board. We listened to the concerns of the historical society. We listened to the concerns of the residents. And we realized that they were absolutely right. And they were making a valid point that the design of the Haviland driveway, the circular driveway design, was indeed part of the overall architectural concept. And it was valuable and it was worth preserving. And if you drive in front of Haviland Middle School today, the Haviland lawn and circle is still preserved. So I raised that because we 100% are willing to work with the town and our community and our neighbors, and in no way does the school district have any intention of doing anything that would compromise the historic nature of our town, the efforts of the visual environment, the concerns of the town planning board. So we have 2 more signs that we need to basically, as a board, decide which direction that you're going to go in, whether or not we want to pursue the ability to change our signs electronically and effectively communicate the business of the school, or maybe do something completely different and have static signs that have to be manually changed. I guess we're down to that. So I leave it to the board for discussion. And
Couple clarifying questions. Does there seem to be an objection to the architecture of the sign?
Absolutely not.
Or the physical size of the sign?
There was some, early on there was a misunderstanding about the size. And
Okay.
no, we are in full agreement with the size. If for any reason we weren't, we would adjust according to what the zoning board would recommend. The size and the design are absolutely not part of the debate. In fact, the design of the signs are in total keeping with the historic nature of the town, with the stone base and the similar architecture. So no, those aren't the question. It's really about the electronic component.
Okay. I mean, you know, I'd have to say I'm pretty much on the fence. I see the pros and cons of each. You know, I even hate to think of it, but you know, this isn't Vegas. You know, that's the one extreme.
Exactly.
And the other extreme is, you know, we struggle with ways to try to communicate to the public or with the public. You know, and here's the situation, particularly the one at FDR that's on Route 9G, a lot of cars passing, and the opportunity for us to be timely in the way that we put information out, or even parents who are coming to and from events or bringing kids to or from school. Same thing at Haviland. You know, the traffic that goes by each of those buildings. You know, I think that, you know, it would be welcoming to many community members perhaps to learn more of what's going on, because the school buildings, I mean, we want the school buildings to be the center. You know, they're part of the center of the community in the way that the people use them. Is there, and I believe Glody Sign is involved. They're our contractor. You know, I've seen some of their presentations in the past. I mean, they literally can bring a sample out of a sign and show. I mean, the manufacturer of these, I think, bring you a live demonstration. I mean, could we, put together some ad hoc group that might sit down and write some simple parameters to say, okay, this is the way that these signs will be used. The scrolling will be only of a certain speed. The color changes will only be, and there's terminology, there's technology. And my thought is, if you can develop what that spec is, what those parameters are, and at the same time demonstrate what it is, and in fact, it's not. It's not the splash and the fireworks and all. I mean, we've seen that, and that's not what any of us want.
Right.
But the ability to be able to put a message out and change it, and maybe it's the fact that the screen doesn't change any more than once every, I don't know, whatever. I mean, just something of that nature.
You could even need to change a message between the morning and the afternoon, It's possible.
To tell you the truth, if a message changed every 10 minutes, it would
Not gonna
be,
see it, right?
you're not going to see it.
Right.
The average person, it's going to be in eyesight probably about 2 minutes if you look in your rearview mirror as you're driving by either one of those properties. So, I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. It's just a matter of what's acceptable, coming up with something where, any sensible person would say, yeah, that's a good idea.
The policy subcommittee is meeting next Wednesday to
Okay.
discuss this. And we're going to look at a sample policy that's been put together by NISBA. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I think once we look at that, maybe we could put some guidelines in there and present a draft to the board,
yeah.
to the planning board to look at and saying, this is a policy we're trying to adopt and trying to stay within these guidelines to support you as a town as well as ourselves. I think that should be our first approach anyway, before we go too far and say we're going to do them, that's it, or not do them.
Yeah. And I look at FDR, for instance, the location at FDR, it's a little bit of a remote strip of Route 9G there. I mean, you've got Texaris across the street. I mean, I don't know whether the sign would be visible maybe by the house that's north. You go up and a little further and there's a street that pulls off to the right. I mean, they might be able to see the sign from their home. I mean, there's not a lot of visibility there. I mean, the alternative would be to bring the sign back in on the FDR common property, but there's a lot more residential there. There's a housing development across the street, unless you were to take it all the way back by the firehouse, and that seems a little
Too far from
too
where
far.
most of the traffic's going to see it.
Yeah, most of the traffic isn't going to see it. So I think it's
Okay.
And I'll just add
Go ahead.
one more comment. In all, we understand that the difficulty the town has in, their mission and their vision, and the fact that they really have worked hard to keep Hyde Park beautiful. And the electronic signs, their regulations have prevented businesses and other entities from putting in these electronic signs. And, it's a little bit difficult for them to, it makes it harder for them to enforce or support their position if another entity in town puts in electronic digital signs. So that's their concern and that's their struggle. In all fairness, I thought I'd present that because I understand that. I get that to a certain degree.
But at the end of the day, we are elected officials. We are the ones that make a decision. And we'll take anything on advisement, but we have to make that decision. And if it's a bad decision, we get voted out. But still, this is something that the board should decide. Keeping the towns in mind and what they want is one thing. But if we feel, and I do, that electronic sign is something that will benefit the district, then that's our decision. Or at least I feel it is my decision as a board member. So we should fully discuss this and really have a find out what everybody thinks and pursue it in the manner that we believe is correct. And if, 4 of us think one way and 3 of us think the other way, well, then that's the way it is. And if 4 say, we don't want these, then that's the way that this board operates.
I can understand how the town wants to keep the historical value of the town, but looking at the way this sign is designed, it is designed very historically pleasing to the eye. And when I first heard the electronic signs, I immediately thought of Ketchum and John Jay, if you ever driven by them at night. It is Las Vegas. But the way this sign is designed, it is so much different than those. And being Violet Avenue has their sign out there. And if you've ever had duty of trying to keep that sign, Aviva's smiling over there because she knows she was
Snowdrift.
in the snowdrift. Yes, I had to do it in the snowdrift to change it. But in the high school and the junior high, the events are constantly changing. A lot faster rate than you are in an elementary school. To be able to keep each event constant and notifying the public what goes on, driving by, when I drove by Violet Avenue, it kept reminding me of the events. Oh yeah, that's happening tonight, or that's happening this week. To be able to publicly get those out there in a much faster turnaround and having all the letters right, because sometimes you didn't have all the letters, so you had to truncate everything.
Funky abbreviations.
Is that a
and everything
0 or an O?
So even though we love to
A
keep
one
the
and an L.
historical reference to Hyde Park, we also have to come of age of the electronic age that is happening now. And we need to keep the balance, and this sign design gives us that balance to keep both. So I really think we need to keep going forward with this, and I think as the parents of if they really want the sign, they need to also let the town know that they agree with this.
Any other comments?
I'm curious about the specific electronics package that's currently part of the design. I'm wondering if there are multiple levels of the electronics package. So, for example, if there's a simplified electronics package that didn't provide effectively near video quality effects, I wonder if that restriction would not reduce the cost of the sign as well as reduce the capabilities, which would in turn make it more palatable.
Well, we
That-
can get back to you.
Yeah, they very well, maybe other packages, but it's not going to change the planning board's view of electronic sign. That was pretty clear, right?
Yeah, I think they're pretty much, and to Perry's point, I don't want to see Las Vegas here either. I mean, but I also agree if it can be done tastefully, it should be considered. I just, I have very mixed feelings about it. I don't think principals or anybody else should be out in, snowdrifts trying to change letters. And by the same token, you want to maintain the character of the town. I can go really either way. I mean, what I don't like about the electronic sign is just the very simple fact of it's considerably more expensive. And if there's an opportunity to save some money, I'm always happy to do that. But but for those 2 buildings, I also see the value in it because there is too much stuff that's constantly going on. But we keep saying that, and that's the other fear I have. We talk about there's always stuff going on, and I just have this fear of driving by, and I know we won't let it happen, but driving by and seeing these signs scrolling, flashing, and Jeff mentioned Ketchum. I was just by there a couple weeks ago. I know exactly what he's talking about. We don't want to turn into that. I don't need to see starbursts and sunbursts, and balloons and fireworks and every other effect you can throw on a video screen. I don't want that.
But that shouldn't prevent
If it can just be, if it can just be static letters that are easy to change, but basically look no different than the static letters that somebody goes out there and lines up, then that's maybe what we should strive for.
Well, and that may be,
Yeah.
to Steve's point, is that maybe there's a less feature-rich
Right.
equipment that could be incorporated in the sign that would solve truly, would, meet our requirements. I mean, it may be.
Well, one would think it would be software.
It is.
Pardon? What's that?
It
Would be
is.
software.
Yeah, it's all about
The,
software,
the,
probably.
Well,
the physical sign will be the same. It depends on what software that,
I've got
Supports
Elliot
it.
behind me nodding, it's the software, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I liked what Perry suggested, that, if we could get a demo unit out there and get a couple representatives from both boards out there, or both entities, and look at what it's gonna
I mean, it's not
be.
like a sign on a trailer, like.
Yeah, I
like-
think that.
Yeah, I'm sure they've got it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's knows what it looks like.
Yeah, because I don't think
If
that-
anything, it would take away from the attractiveness of the new sign. If you wheel a portable sign out there, and this is how the lettering is,
Well, it doesn't have to be there. It could be here in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
I
I'm saying. I mean, you could take it over to town hall, you could take it in the parking
Yeah.
lot
It
of
means
town
for a
hall.
demo, yeah,
And
yeah.
just show them we know what we don't like. It's a matter of just establishing, okay, what is acceptable?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about it. I mean, if you bring this, if you do just what you suggest, and I go, I have no interest in that, then I'm against it.
Yeah.
I almost want to see it, because I've got these visions in my head. While I understand the convenience and the flexibility of it, I've got visions in my head that I'm not going to like it, and I don't want to pay for or try to shove down everybody's throat in the town something that I personally am going to object to when I see it. So.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, even with software and PowerPoint presentations, I mean, I can tell you that I've seen PowerPoint presentations that I like that have, animation and things happening, and I've seen some that are just like way too busy. It's like, I missed what they were trying to get across. So it's kind of in parallel, just, let's scale it back, look at what do we want, set some standards, and I think that, yeah, you've got, your bylaws committee gonna look at it. I think that that's
Policy.
good, and policy committee, and work with the vendor to get some technical input perhaps, and.
We could, I'm thinking about this, there may be different concentrations of LEDs, how many per inch. There could be different things that
You know what?
might save money.
I don't think there's anybody in this room that has.
No, I'm saying in
the
terms
answer,
of,
so-
having the ability to have less function. Maybe if, to
Could be
utilize the
intensity.
software, you need X number of LEDs per square inch.
Pixels.
You know,
I mean,
or-
it's all,
Well, it's all LEDs.
there's a technology there that we see, but I don't know that we really, other than maybe Steve, I don't know, understands. Let the professionals show us how you tone it down and still get what we want.
Okay, so the net is, we're okay with the elementary ones, they're gonna be
Well,
done.
we'll wait to hear from the
We're-
town planning.
We're,
board.
we're waiting to hear, and quite frankly, if they come back and say, then I'm sorry, there's nothing wrong with those signs. If it's up to me to vote on them, I'm gonna vote for them, so, I hate to be that way, like you said, we're trying very hard, and this project has been endless. And
2007.
because we've tried to accommodate the town, but at the end of the day, it is our decision.
Doug?
Is there I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that I think that it is in the best interest of our constituents to put those electronic signs up at FDR and HMS. However, I also understand the town's concerns, and I'm convinced that there's a middle ground here where if both parties, if they're willing to compromise with us, then we can meet them part way.
Okay.
But I think it's in the best interest of our constituents, and frankly, I think it's in the best interest of the town as well, for the citizens to be more well-informed in terms of what's going on at our buildings.
And who knows, we may convince them to change their objection to electronic signs.
Is there a public hearing scheduled with the town
Yes,
on this subject?
September 3rd
Which
at
is
the
next
town
Wednesday?
hall at 7 p.m.
So anybody is welcome to show up at that and voice their opinion?
Yes,
For or
they're
against?
reviewing the elementary signs, not the digital.
Oh, not the digital?
Not the
Okay,
digital,
just the
no.
elementary, okay. Okay.
Because
Which
there
seemed
really
endless.
isn't an anticipated problem with
Yeah,
those,
yeah, okay.
Okay.
We'll
we
see.
Move on. May I have a motion for 9.1, the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in
Did
favor?
get my answer to my
Yes.
question?
Yes, Kevin phoned earlier about the stipend for the teacher for the Medicaid reimbursement, and I called Aviva, and I remembered that I got an answer once, and I must have been so satisfied that it didn't come to me right away. That's a speech teacher, and there's a special licensing or certification for filling out the Medicaid reimbursement form. She's the only one in the district with that license, so she does it for all the other teachers. We have had very little turn.
It's
Well, I'll
close. It's close.
Close. Okay, I'm going to let Aviva take this one.
Yeah, and I don't have the real detail on the different certifications, but the person who's getting the stipend is one of the people who is able to submit claims to Medicaid, and we get reimbursement from the state through that. And a couple of our speech teachers don't have that licensure. They are licensed to provide services, but not to get from Medicaid. So they have to be supervised in order for us to bill for their students. So we're able to get reimbursement from the state because there's that oversight. So we worked something out with the teachers union a few years ago for that person to get a stipend because they actually have to spend time in buildings where they don't work, supervising the other people. So I believe there's 2 people that need to be supervised, and the rest all have the licensure, but one person actually gets a stipend for doing the work.
And Aviva, if I'm correct, you told me that the money we recoup in Medicaid reimbursement
Way more than
far
the
exceeds
$3,000 for the
$3,000,
stipend.
so.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right.
thanks.
All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Oh, that brings us way down to...
Special, I guess I'll move special ed placements. No, yeah, special ed placements, right? We're on 10.1 now?
Yep.
10.1, yeah,
Second.
So moved,
Second.
as presented.
that's presented. Is there any discussion? Unfortunately, Dan is not here tonight. He normally does that. He had an operation that went a little bit off more than was expected, and he's home recuperating. But he expects to be back as soon as he can. So all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. I guess 10.2, contracts for special education services as shown in the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that one? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. 10.3, authorization to correct tax errors. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Obviously, as stated in the agenda. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
That's only for the towns that we collect for, not for Hyde Park and
Right.
Poughkeepsie, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. 10.4, this is the transfer of tax tertiary reserve funds as was described to us by Wayne earlier in the thing. Yes.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? You can see, wait a minute, we still have executive session. We're not going to see the Giant game anyway, so don't worry about it. Yeah.
Thanks, Jay.
What was that?
at home watching it, that's how I
Oh.
I should have my phone here, he'd be texting.
10.5, the funding for the tax cert. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. And I have a motion for 10.6, setting of the tax levy and signing of the tax warrant.
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Now, we're going to do the signing now or after? We're gonna do this before or after the meeting?
It doesn't matter, whatever.
Okay, we'll do it at the end.
Mr. Heater, I suggest that we do it during our second exec.
Well, she has to
I have
have
to
it.
have them
She has to
to get
have
to
it.
the-
We have to do it before we go into exec. Because she has to file them. Well, unless you want to do it
Should we do that
now.
after second exec?
She has to stay. Yes, we're not doing it after the exec, second exec. We're more
We could have had it done by
kinder
now.
and gentler.
Send them down this way, I'll start.
Right.
Just pass them down the
So,
row.
Did we vote on that one? Yes, we did, okay. 10.7, I have a motion for the amended appointment of summer work for nurses,
So moved.
Second.
as in the agenda.
Right.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. I have a motion for 10.8, intermunicipal agreement between Hyde Park and the Hyde Park Town Police for the SROs.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. And I have a motion for 10.9, National School Lunch Program Free and Reduced Meal Policy Eligibility Guidelines, as given in the agenda.
So move.
Second?
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just a quick question. We are, by accepting this, we are setting prices as well, right?
I think we set,
We
no, we
set the
set
prices
prices
at
already.
the budget,
Annual meeting.
for the budget, yeah.
Reorganization.
This is saying that we're going to use the monies from the federal government for the reduced, free and reduced program.
Okay.
Technically, we should do it together, but the state didn't have it available when we, at the reorg.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Can I have a motion for, my thing moved, 10.10, the budget increase as listed in the agenda. That would be for technology for Ralph Smith and also technology for Violet Avenue Elementary. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to make sure that those keeping score at home know that the money for this expenditure is coming from the New York State Microsoft Settlement Funds
Oh,
for school technology.
very good. Yes.
And it's effectively
Free money?
giving
Wow.
$23,300 to Ralph R. Smith and the same amount to Violet Avenue for technology.
All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right, now we're down to the bond resolution. That'll be 10.11. This is as discussed, as presented by Mr. Donegan. Is that one, this one?
This is different. This is,
Yeah, this is school buses.
Oh, the bus purchase, the next one. I'm a little ahead of myself, sorry. Let's restate that. This is the bond for the bus purchases as approved by the voters at the last budget. Is there any other discussion?
So moved as written in the agenda?
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? All right. Now we're at the refunding bond resolution. I have a motion for 10.12, refunding bond resolution as presented earlier in the meeting.
So moved. Second?
Any discussion? I'll just say that I'm for
Yeah,
this.
I am too. Does this
Yep,
have to
I
be
think
a
it's time.
roll call or no?
All right, because I think it's going to actually be more than 400,000,
Yeah.
and because it's gone down
Yeah.
considerably. All right,
Does this have to be a roll call vote? Because it's a bond resolution?
For refunding, I think I will.
Yeah, just in case. It's always safer. It's the same effect.
Mr. Danielson?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Mittermeier?
Aye.
Mr. Peter?
aye.
Mr. Sheldon?
Aye.
Aye.
historical. Oh, yeah.
We had already,
Yeah, so who hasn't done Steve?
must had to be either.
You can sign for me.
Use us while we just.
Almost did.
get rid of that.
I move 10.13, the HPTA MOA as presented.
Thanks.
I'll help you along here. I know you're
Thank you.
busy over
Thank
there.
you.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. I'm almost done here. You want to do another one, Cal?
Yeah, I'll
Kevin?
move the recall, the 10.14, recall of non-instructional employees.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. I got one more to go here.
I'll make a motion for public participation.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you very much. We're now back in public participation. Thank you, Kevin. Would anybody like to address the board? Mr. Hughes, step right up.
Good evening, Steve Hughes, district resident. Wanted to say a couple words about the district signage. Given that hopefully you will not be buying new signs in the near future or as long as I live in Hyde Park, I would urge you not to limit yourself technologically when you can limit it through procedure or through software, because there may come a time when you need those advanced features for reasons that you can't anticipate now. And to limit yourself to a less dense resolution or to some other means other than the LEDs, you wouldn't have that that ability. So, you know, especially since you've already allocated the money, and chances are I'm not going to see any of it come back. So.
Oh, you little thief.
I can't tell you how excited I saw on the agenda there was a refunding item until I understood what it really meant.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Anybody else? May I have a motion to close public participation?
So moved. Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much.
I think Mr. Hughes has a valid point.
Yeah.
We should limit ourselves through policy
Yep.
and practice rather than technology.
Okay. I don't think there's any other matters that deemed necessary at the board at this time. Let's go to subcommittee reports. We really haven't had only, as far as I know, just the tech committee met on Monday. Why don't you want to do that, Steve, and
Sure.
keep me out of trouble?
Effectively, we're gearing up to work on the technology plan for the following, I want to say 5 years. The interesting thing about technology plans is that you used to be able to update it every 5. Now it's got a 5-year span and you update it yearly or every 18 months. So among the conversation items were the vastly improved infrastructure. We've got Wi-Fi in, I want to say, almost all the buildings. I might stretch. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we had it in all buildings. Now it's universal coverage in all
Yes.
buildings.
Mhm.
And so now we've got decisions about what devices we allow on the networks, how we manage that. A topic that's near and dear to my heart is implementing, creating the ability for students to use technology in the classrooms and setting policies for bring your own device, or perhaps trying to move towards a one-to-one implementation. So it's an exciting time, and that's part of the technology plan. We discussed the fact that we want to put together a larger committee to consider that. So we want to recruit administrators outside of the central office, teachers, students, parents, so that we've got a more well-rounded view and consider more than just the scope of the people in the room for the normal technology committee. So if you're within reach of my voice and you're interested in being part of that, please call the district office and give us your information, and we'll try to get you involved.
Okay, I'd just like to point out, as the result of past initiatives and spending, the district has now purchased Asus Chromebooks. Steve and I were given each one on Monday to test drive, and let's see how we have them in every building now. Some are on carts, some are being used will be used for testing purposes. These are a very, it's a Chromebook. It's very light, it's very easy to use, doesn't heat up, there's no fan, there's no noise, no moving parts other than the keyboard. It's really a nice thing that should be able to use by kids in the district for many years to come, because it's relatively sturdy.
Spectacular battery life.
And the battery life is incredible. It is. I've been using this since I charged it up before I came because I was afraid I didn't want it to run out of thing. But when it says 10 hours of life, you get 10 hours. Nope, no problem at all. So I'm excited, and I think the kids will be excited to use these, and hopefully, as we also discussed in the tech committee meeting, that if the technology bond passes, if I remember right, we're due to get like 1.4 million out of that. We could possibly go to one-on-one devices for every child in the district, because we've already spent the money to upgrade our infrastructure. As Steve and I know, right here in this building with AC wireless, it's really good. So I think we've come a long way, and I'm really happy with the direction the school district is going on technology. All right, thank you very much. Is there any other board committees that met?
The FSF committee met briefly just to review the upcoming project, and they gave some feedback on the Q&A, and so that was a good meeting.
Okay.
I can also say that the Dutchess County School Board Association met a couple times over the summer, discussed some of the bylaws and changes, perhaps, and kind of organizational type of things. There is a meeting coming up Thursday, September 4th. Certainly open to all board members to attend, and superintendent welcome to attend. That's at the BOCES Center.
Thank you. Our own Perry Sheldon is you're an officer there now, right? I'm not.
Yeah, I'm the legislative committee chair.
Right. Means you get to go to Albany.
I get to go to Albany.
I know.
Or at least talk to
It's so
Albany.
much fun.
Yeah.
All right,
We
at
talked
this
to
time, we do have a need for a second executive session. Hopefully it won't be too long. May I have a motion to?
So moved?
Second.
Sorry, to discuss personnel matters pertaining to employment of history of a particular person. Thank you. And we had a second. All those in favor? Thank you. We're now in executive session.
I second.
discussion? All in favor? That would be 6-0. That'd be a surprise if I put, you know, like 4-2 or something, you know. And
Just shake it up.
now, may I have a motion to appoint Peter as clerk pro tem in the absence of the district clerk?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
You don't have discussion?
So, there's no discussion.
I'd
We don't like
like
Okay.
to see a resume to see if qualifications are appropriate.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
And that was at 9:35. Oh, this must have been 9:34.
So you want to record the time of the vote?
Okay.
Time too.
Are we voting?
Is there any discussion of this? No? All right. All those in favor? Opposed? None.
Let's get out of their way.
Yeah, I've yet to see an opposing vote for a motion.